Your brain wants the thrill of now, not the freedom of later. But every moment of discipline today becomes a doorway tomorrow. Financial freedom is boring at first, but brilliant later. Chapter 6. Instant pleasure versus future reward. The brain seeks dopamine, not stability. Human beings like to believe that we make financial decisions based on logic, planning, and long-term vision. But beneath our intentions lies a powerful biological truth. The brain is wired to seek dopamine, the chemical of immediate pleasure, excitement, and reward. Stability, patience, and long-term gain require a different part of the mind, one that is quieter, slower, and much less emotionally stimulating. This tension between dopamine and discipline shapes a significant portion of our financial behavior. Dopamine is released not when we achieve something, but when we anticipate it. This anticipation creates a rush, a feeling of excitement that momentarily lifts the mind from stress or routine. This is why buying something new can feel so satisfying. It is not the object itself that creates the emotional surge. It is the anticipation of having it. Once the purchase is made and the novelty fades, the dopamine drops, and the brain looks for the next source of stimulation. This cycle can quickly lead to impulsive spending, even when we know it works against our long-term stability. Stability, by contrast, is not emotionally stimulating. It brings peace, security, and consistency, but not intensity. Putting money into savings, sticking to a budget, or investing for the future does not produce the immediate excitement that triggers dopamine. It requires patience and maturity, qualities that must quiet the brain's natural desire for quick gratification. This is why long-term financial success often feels emotionally unglamorous. It requires valuing small, steady progress over short bursts of pleasure. The conflict becomes clear when we consider how modern life amplifies dopamine triggers. Social media, advertising, fast transactions, and endless access to products create a constant stream of temptation. The brain encounters novelty at every turn, each moment offering a potential reward. This environment is not designed for stability. It is designed for stimulation. And the more stimulation we experience, the harder it becomes to appreciate the slower reward of disciplined financial decisions. This biological bias does not mean people lack willpower. It means they are human. The brain is simply doing what it evolved to do: seek immediate reward to ensure survival. But in a modern financial world, this instinct often works against us. The same mechanism that once protected us now leads us toward impulsive choices that undermine our future. Understanding this helps remove the shame many people feel about their spending habits. They are not failing. They are responding to a powerful internal trigger. To navigate this conflict, awareness is essential. When you recognize that your urge to spend comes from dopamine, not from real need or long-term value, you gain the ability to pause. This pause creates a space for rational thinking. It allows the slower, more deliberate part of the brain to take the lead. Even a few seconds of awareness can prevent an impulsive decision and redirect attention toward long-term goals. Replacing dopamine-driven habits with stability-driven ones also requires reconditioning. The key is to associate positive emotion with slow, steady progress. Celebrate your consistency, not just your outcomes. Track your savings or investments visually, so your brain can see progress. Reward yourself for discipline, not just for indulgence. When you train the mind to feel good about long-term behaviors, dopamine becomes an ally rather than a saboteur. Another effective approach is creating friction around impulsive choices and ease around intentional ones. For example, Delaying purchases by 24 to 48 hours gives dopamine time to settle and clarity time to rise. Automating savings removes the emotional struggle altogether. Structuring your environment to reduce temptation helps your long-term mind stay in control. Ultimately, understanding that the brain seeks dopamine, not stability, gives you the power to take back control of your financial life. Instead of fighting your biology, you learn to work with it. You understand your impulses with compassion and guide your behaviors with intention. And over time, this alignment creates the emotional balance required to build real wealth. Stability may not trigger excitement, but it creates something far more valuable: freedom, peace, and a future shaped by your choices rather than your impulses. When you learn to honor this truth, your relationship with money transforms from reactive to purposeful, from temporary pleasure to lasting reward. How impulsive purchases fill emotional voids. Impulsive purchases rarely happen because someone truly needs the item in front of them. More often, they occur because a moment of emotional discomfort seeks immediate relief. These purchases act as temporary bandages for feelings we have not yet learned to address directly: stress, loneliness, boredom, frustration, insecurity, or the quiet ache of unmet desires. The object becomes secondary. The emotion becomes the real driver. When someone feels overwhelmed, uncertain, or emotionally drained, the mind instinctively searches for a quick source of comfort. Buying something new offers an instant surge of dopamine, a momentary sense of excitement or satisfaction. It replaces discomfort with stimulation, emptiness with anticipation, and insecurity with a fleeting sense of control. In that moment, the purchase feels like a solution, not because it resolves the underlying emotion, but because it distracts from it. This is why impulsive spending often follows difficult days. A stressful meeting, an argument, a period of loneliness, or a feeling of stagnation can push someone toward the emotional relief that buying provides. The mind interprets the act of purchasing as a form of self-soothing. The new item becomes a symbol of renewal, even if the feeling lasts only a few minutes or hours. But the relief is temporary. Once the novelty fades, the emotional void resurfaces, unchanged, unaddressed, and sometimes even amplified by the regret of spending impulsively. This cycle quietly trains the brain to associate financial impulsivity with emotional escape. Over time, this pattern can lead to overspending, financial stress, and a deepening sense of dissatisfaction. The very behavior meant to soothe becomes a source of new discomfort. Many people do not realize that impulsive purchases often reflect emotional needs rather than material ones. A new outfit may represent a desire for confidence. A new gadget may symbolize a longing for progress. An expensive experience may reflect the need to feel valued or included. These are not superficial desires. They are human ones. But using spending to fulfill them is like treating a symptom instead of the cause. Recognizing this pattern requires compassion, not criticism. People do not make impulsive purchases because they lack discipline. They do so because they are seeking relief from emotions they have not learned to navigate differently. When you begin to understand the emotional roots of your impulses, you gain the ability to change your relationship with money. One of the most effective ways to break this cycle is to pause and ask a simple question. What am I feeling right now? If the answer is anxiety, stress, boredom, loneliness, or frustration, then the impulse is emotional, not practical. This moment of awareness creates space between feeling and action. It allows the logical mind to re-enter the conversation and guide the decision. Another strategy is to find healthier ways to meet the emotional need. If you are stressed, try a walk or deep breathing. If you feel lonely, reach out to someone. If you feel stagnant, journal or revisit your goals. When the emotional need is met directly, the impulse to spend loses its power. Building long-term financial stability requires understanding your emotional patterns with honesty. When you recognize that impulsive purchases are not about the objects themselves, but about the feelings beneath them, you begin to develop emotional literacy. This literacy becomes a shield, protecting your progress, strengthening your discipline, and allowing you to respond to discomfort without compromising your future. Ultimately, impulsive purchases fill emotional voids only for a moment. True fulfillment comes from addressing those emotions with awareness, self-compassion, and intentional action. When you learn to soothe yourself in ways that do not sabotage your financial well-being, you reclaim your power. You begin to build a life rooted not in temporary relief, but in long-term peace, stability, and emotional maturity. Strategy: delay gratification. The 48-hour rule. One of the most effective tools for gaining control over impulsive spending is remarkably simple: delay. Not denial, not restriction, not punishment, just delay. The 48-hour rule is a strategy designed to create space between emotion and action, allowing the logical mind to re-engage before a financial decision is made. This pause is powerful because it shifts the decision-making process from impulse to intention. Impulsive purchases are driven by emotion, excitement, stress, boredom, or the desire for comfort. These emotions create urgency, convincing the mind that the purchase must happen now. The 48-hour rule interrupts this urgency. It asks you to wait, breathe, and let the emotional wave pass before deciding whether the item is truly necessary or whether it is simply a reaction to a temporary feeling. During those 48 hours, something profound happens. Dopamine settles. The intensity of the desire fades. What once felt essential becomes optional. The object that seemed irresistible begins to lose its emotional charge. You gain clarity that is impossible to access in the heat of the moment. This clarity reveals the truth behind the impulse, whether the purchase aligns with your long-term goals or whether it was merely filling an emotional void. The rule is simple. When you feel the urge to buy something that is not essential, pause. Write it down or save it in a list. Commit to waiting 48 hours before making the decision. This short, intentional delay gives your mind time to separate desire from need. At the end of the waiting period, ask yourself, do I still want this? Or was I simply responding to an emotion? More often than not, the urgency has disappeared. The impulse weakens, and you begin to see the purchase objectively. You recognize whether it brings real value or whether it was a momentary escape. This strategy is not about depriving yourself. It is about protecting your future self from decisions made by your temporary self. It is about allowing the wiser, calmer part of your mind to take the lead. With practice, the 48-hour rule becomes less about waiting and more about thinking. It helps you build the habit of slowing down, evaluating your motivations, and choosing intentionally. The rule also creates a powerful psychological shift. It teaches you that patience is not a barrier to enjoyment, it is a gateway to clarity. When you learn to delay gratification, you strengthen your emotional discipline. You become less reactive, more mindful, and increasingly capable of making choices that support your long-term stability. This emotional maturity becomes a foundation for financial freedom. Another unexpected benefit of the 48-hour rule is that it increases appreciation for the purchases that truly matter. When you wait and still decide to buy something, you do so with intention, not impulse. You value it more deeply because it aligns with your goals rather than with a fleeting emotion. Your relationship with spending becomes more conscious, balanced, and fulfilling. Delaying gratification also helps break the cycle of emotional spending. Each time you successfully wait, you weaken the neural pathways associated with impulsive behavior. You train your brain to tolerate discomfort, uncertainty, or stress without resorting to immediate relief. Over time, this shift builds resilience, an essential element of financial success. The 48-hour rule is simple, but its impact is profound. It turns emotional reactions into conscious decisions. It allows stability to triumph over impulse. It empowers you to choose long-term reward over short-term pleasure. And perhaps most importantly, it reminds you that you have control, real, measurable control over the way you use your money. In a world designed to trigger instant gratification, choosing to wait is an act of strength. It is a quiet declaration that your future matters more than a momentary feeling. And when you embrace this practice, you begin to build a life guided not by impulses but by intention, wisdom, and long-term peace. Real example: going from buying Starbucks daily to investing monthly. Sometimes the most powerful financial transformations come from the smallest changes that may appear insignificant in the moment, but over time, reshape a person's entire relationship with money. One of the clearest examples of shifting from instant pleasure to long-term reward is the simple act of replacing a daily indulgence with a monthly investment. This example is not about coffee itself. It is about the psychology behind our choices and the profound impact of redirecting emotional habits toward intentional growth. Imagine someone who begins each day with the same routine, a trip to their favorite coffee shop. The purchase is more than caffeine. It is comfort, ritual, and reward. That daily cup provides a moment of pleasure, a sense of routine, and a brief emotional lift. But it also becomes a habit driven by anticipation, by dopamine, not by necessity. One day, this person takes a step back and evaluates their spending. They realize that the daily habit, while comforting, adds up to a substantial monthly cost. The insight is not just mathematical, it is emotional. They recognize that the coffee is serving a purpose far beyond taste. It is fulfilling a need for comfort, predictability, or relief from stress. With this awareness, they decide to experiment with a small but meaningful change. Instead of spending that amount daily, they will invest the equivalent amount monthly. At first, the shift feels uncomfortable. The daily ritual is gone, and with it, the small burst of excitement that came from anticipating the purchase. But something new begins to take its place. On the day they transfer that money into an investment account, they feel a different kind of reward, one rooted not in impulse but in intention. They experience a sense of progress, of discipline, of moving closer to financial stability. Over time, this emotional shift strengthens. The pleasure of the daily purchase fades quickly, but the satisfaction of watching their investment grow lasts much longer. They begin to associate discipline with empowerment. They learn that long-term reward carries a deeper emotional resonance than momentary gratification. What once felt like a sacrifice becomes a source of pride. As the months pass, the difference becomes visible. The money that once disappeared into small daily expenses begins to accumulate. The investment grows steadily, not through dramatic leaps but through consistency. What was once a daily indulgence that yielded nothing beyond a fleeting moment of pleasure has transformed into a habit that builds security, confidence, and future opportunity. This simple example illustrates a powerful truth. Small habits repeated over time shape your financial destiny. The shift is not about eliminating enjoyment. It is about choosing fulfillment over impulse. It is about understanding that every dollar has a purpose, and when directed wisely, it becomes a tool for freedom rather than a response to emotion. The transition from daily spending to monthly investing teaches an essential lesson. Your financial future is built not by dramatic gestures but by small, intentional decisions made consistently. You do not need to overhaul your entire lifestyle to create change. You simply need to redirect your habits in a way that aligns with your long-term goals. The person who once sought comfort in a cup now finds comfort in progress. They discover that the satisfaction of taking control of their financial life far exceeds the temporary pleasure of a daily indulgence. And with each passing month, that sense of empowerment grows, quietly, steadily, and meaningfully. This is the power of shifting from instant pleasure to future reward. It is not about deprivation, it is about transformation. When you begin to choose long-term stability over short-term satisfaction, your financial life starts to reflect your vision rather than your impulses. And from that moment on, you move closer to the freedom and peace that consistent, intentional choices can create. Financial freedom is boring at first, brilliant later. One of the most misunderstood truths about financial freedom is that its beginnings are rarely exciting. The early stages do not feel glamorous, dramatic, or impressive. In fact, they often feel repetitive, uneventful, and ordinary. Building a stable financial future requires habits that are quiet, consistent, and disciplined. Habits that do not bring immediate pleasure, but that gradually construct a foundation strong enough to support a life of lasting abundance. In the beginning, financial freedom looks like small decisions repeated over and over again. It looks like choosing to save instead of spending impulsively. It looks like investing steadily, even when the results seem invisible. It looks like declining temptations that offer short-term joy in exchange for long-term progress. These choices rarely feel thrilling. They require patience in a world that celebrates urgency and rewards instant gratification. This early boredom is not a flaw in the process. It is the process. It reflects the shift from emotional decision-making to intentional action. The mind is learning to trade excitement for stability, impulse for vision, and momentary pleasure for lasting reward. This transition can feel slow and at times even discouraging, but beneath the surface, something powerful is happening. Your life is being rewired for long-term success. Financial freedom becomes brilliant in the same way a seed becomes a tree, quietly at first and unmistakably over time. When the results begin to appear, they often arrive with a sense of wonder. Investments start to grow. Savings begin to form a protective cushion. Opportunities that once felt out of reach become attainable. Decisions that once required effort become second nature. The reward does not come from the money alone. It comes from the confidence, peace, and clarity that stability creates. The brilliance also emerges emotionally. You start to feel lighter because you are no longer controlled by urgency. You feel more grounded because your decisions are guided by purpose, not impulse. You experience a sense of dignity that comes from knowing you are building something meaningful, even if others cannot yet see it. Financial freedom becomes a source of internal strength, a quiet confidence that grows with every intentional choice. Over time, what was once boring becomes deeply fulfilling. The discipline that once felt restrictive becomes liberating. You begin to enjoy the calm that comes from not depending on chance or reacting to every emotional spark. You realize that the habits you built patiently are now protecting you, supporting you, and expanding your possibilities. The brilliance of financial freedom is not in its intensity, but in its longevity. It is the freedom to choose how you live, where you go, and what you become, without being bound by financial anxiety. This transformation reveals a profound truth. Excitement is temporary, but freedom endures. The early stages of financial discipline may lack the thrill of immediate pleasure, but they create a life that is far more rewarding. The brilliance is not just in the wealth itself. It is in the person you become, someone capable of patience, wisdom, and long-term thinking. Financial freedom is not about making extraordinary moves. It is about making consistent, intentional choices long enough for them to bloom. It is about trusting that the quiet work you do today will create a life of abundance tomorrow. When you embrace this truth, the boring parts of the journey become not a chore, but a commitment to a future where your choices are guided not by impulse, but by clarity and purpose. And when that future arrives, you will look back and realize that every quiet moment, every steady habit, and every patient decision was building something brilliant. Financial freedom begins in silence, but it ends in empowerment. Financial freedom is boring at first, brilliant later. One of the least glamorous truths about building wealth is that the journey begins in silence. Financial freedom rarely starts with dramatic breakthroughs or extraordinary luck. Instead, it emerges from a series of small, repetitive choices that often feel uneventful, predictable, and even dull. In its early stages, financial discipline lacks excitement. It is a quiet process, almost invisible, and that is precisely why so many people abandon it before they experience its rewards. The path to freedom begins with habits that do not immediately transform your life. Preparing your own meals, tracking your spending, investing modest amounts regularly, choosing not to upgrade something that is still functioning well, or declining purchases that promise quick pleasure but offer little long-term value. These decisions are not thrilling. They require patience, consistency, and restraint. They demand that you value your future more than the momentary satisfaction of the present. At first, this shift can feel uncomfortable. When you move away from impulsive habits toward intentional ones, the excitement that impulse once provided disappears. You are no longer driven by the constant stimulation of buy now, treat yourself, or you deserve this today. Instead, you enter a calmer rhythm, one that offers discipline rather than dopamine. And at the beginning, that calmness can feel unfamiliar, even uninteresting. But this boredom is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign that something is working. It means your emotions are no longer leading your financial decisions. It means you are learning to separate desire from necessity, impulse from intention, and short-term excitement from long-term purpose. This stage marks the emotional transformation that makes wealth creation possible. Over time, the results of this quiet discipline begin to compound. Savings grow, investments deepen, debt shrinks. You feel less pressure, less urgency, and less emotional turbulence around money. What once required effort now feels natural. What once felt like sacrifice begins to feel like strength. Slowly, the boring stage evolves into something far more powerful: stability. And that stability is where brilliance begins. Financial freedom becomes brilliant the moment you realize that your life is no longer dictated by stress or scarcity. You no longer fear unexpected expenses. You no longer feel trapped by obligations. You no longer depend on impulse to cope with discomfort. Instead, you have options. You have margin. You have peace. This emotional freedom is often more valuable than the financial freedom itself. The brilliance also shows up in the possibilities that open before you. You can say yes to opportunities without hesitation. You can invest in your growth without fear. You can support loved ones without resentment. You can take risks that align with your purpose because you are not anchored by financial insecurity. What began as quiet discipline becomes a foundation for expansion. This transformation reveals an essential truth. Financial freedom feels dull before it feels extraordinary. The early work is subtle, the progress is slow, the patterns are repetitive. But these quiet efforts build a life that feels spacious, intentional, and deeply fulfilling. The brilliance of financial freedom is not in the practices themselves, it is in what they create. A life guided by clarity instead of impulse. A future shaped by intention instead of emotion. A sense of peace that cannot be purchased, only earned through consistency. When you accept that the beginning is supposed to feel unremarkable, you free yourself from the illusion that wealth grows out of excitement. It does not. It grows out of discipline, patience, and the willingness to commit to choices that seem small today, but become life-changing tomorrow. Financial freedom is boring at first, yes, but when its results unfold, slowly, quietly, and then all at once, they are nothing short of brilliant. If you believe this chapter could help someone, feel free to share it. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one. And if you enjoyed this audiobook, please like and subscribe. Your support truly helps us keep creating more content like this.